Hey, good morning, everybody. Today we're just going to start a new chapter in history. Friday, I posted the chapter 24 test. Most of you have taken it, and you should have received your scores back by now. Chapter 25 is going to be a really quick chapter. I'm going to cover all of the notes all just in one day here. I typically, even in a normal setting, I cover this chapter really, really quickly. Chapter 24 was all about the Great Depression, like what the Depression was, the problems we were dealing with. Chapter 25 gets into the beginning of how we get out of the Great Depression. And there's really two things that are going to end the Great Depression. There's this thing called the New Deal, which that's all this chapter is about, and then World War II. And chapters 26 and 27 are going to deal with like what caused World War II, how we got into it, and what World War II was. So those two things get us out of the depression. Um, Now, the reason I'm going to cover this quickly is because, quite frankly, it's mostly just a bunch of government programs. To explain real quickly, like what the New Deal was President Herbert Hoover. If you remember from chapter 24, he was the guy who all like the homeless shelters, homeless camps were nicknamed Hoovervilles in honor of him because he was such a jerk. He didn't seem to really care about Americans' problems. He felt that it was their job to get themselves out of poverty. He didn't understand the problems that people are dealing with. He seemed cold and heartless. Franklin Roosevelt, when he became president in 1932 or 1933, he decided that he wanted to quote unquote declare war against the emergency. He wanted to treat the Great Depression like it was a war. And he created what he called a New Deal. This was just a series of programs created by Franklin Roosevelt or FDR to try to help Americans that were hurt by the Depression. The very first thing he did was he, in on March 6th of 1933, declared a bank holiday. He ordered every bank in America closed, literally every bank, and they weren't allowed to reopen until the government declared that they were sound, meaning that they had enough money. Sounds kind of similar to what we're dealing with right now. The entire economy was shut down now, and we're not going to be allowed to be opened again until we're healthy and it's safe. Um, he was just trying to create this sense of confidence in the banking system again that our money was safe in banks. On top of that, he created, and we still see this today. It's called the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or the FDIC. If you ever go into a bank and you see this sticker up here, that means that they have this special federal bank insurance, which today insures a bank deposit up to $250,000. Back in 1933, it was just $5,000. It's literally just insurance that if something bad happens to the bank, your money is safe, that the government will give it back to you. So if the bank burns down, if it gets robbed, if it just runs out of cash, your money is safe so long as you don't have above today $250,000, but back then over $5,000 in the bank. And this was a big deal. This made people feel comfortable about putting their money in banks again. And from that point on, I mean, really, all this chapter is me just sort of like hitting home and explaining what all these different government programs are. There were literally dozens of them for you guys, and given the circumstance we're dealing with, all I wanted to explain was what some of them did. These were large programs. We had millions of unemployed workers, and this would help to create jobs for 13 million unemployed workers. One of the first ones was known as the Federal Emergency Relief Administration, or FERA, which just gave $500 million of aid to different state and local governments. They could create whatever programs to put people to work. They could create welfare programs. It wasn't all that popular because people thought they were just sort of free handouts, and some people did not like that. It basically the same argument against welfare as you hear all the time is people would rather work and earn money as opposed to being given money. Franklin Roosevelt heard that, He then created a couple of very popular programs. This one was called the Civil Works Administration, which would actually pay people to do simple jobs in their own town. Like one common example would be like the government would pay you to just go around your town and rake leaves. It would be a simple job, but at least you're doing work and it's not just a free handout. In 1933 to 1934, the government handed out almost $1 billion to 4 million people. That's massive amounts of money. Another, like even more popular program was this Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC. This would provide job training, not just jobs, but job training to young men ages 18 to 25. On over a 10-year period of time, it would train 2.5 million young men. So when this was all done, they still had skills that they could use afterwards. And we treated them almost like they were soldiers. We trained them in army camps. They worked in large groups in our nation's parks and our forests. They would be given a monthly stipend, a monthly salary of $30, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're homeless at the time or you're unemployed at the time, $30 a month is a good bet. And they would typically house you, so you would uh, get a free place to live and free food. It, this is a huge deal. This Civilian Conservation Corps. I would recommend watching this short video up here. It'll give you a little bit more explanation as to who the CCC was and what they did. Um, Beyond that, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Just know there's a Securities and Exchange Commission. They exist today still. This was a government entity or government agency that's meant to try to stop future stock market crashes. They watch companies that sell stock in the stock market to make sure they behave well. Um, there's this National Industrial Recovery Act, or NIRA. They would create programs that would spend money on building roads, bridges, public buildings like schools or libraries or hospitals. Let's see here. We've got the Agricultural Adjustment Administration. I think this is kind of a big deal here. Farmers were struggling with making money, most notably because nobody was buying their product. Prices were high for them. So what the government wanted to do was to somehow increase prices that farmers were making. So in order to do that, they actually had to get farmers to grow less crop. Because if there was less food, prices go up, they make more money. So they would actually pay farmers to grow less food, which doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense, but it actually like is sound economic theory. We're actually seeing that right now with dairy farmers. Dairy farmers are struggling because they have too much milk, not enough people are buying it, and they are just flushing milk down the drain right now because it's it's makes them more money to do that. If they were to put all their milk out and try to sell it all, the price of milk would plummet. This slide here, I do want to point out this whole the Tennessee Valley River. You got the state of Tennessee here. If you look at this map here, the Tennessee Valley or the Tennessee River is this river that comes through here. It gets its name from the state of Tennessee, but it's more than just Tennessee. The Tennessee Valley is this whole region, mostly Tennessee, but you got parts of Kentucky and Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, a lot of Mississippi here. The Great Depression hit this area maybe hardest of everywhere else in the country. They had just total abject poverty. Like we had some of the poorest people in America living in this region. And on top of that, they were dealing with massive disease, illiteracy, malnutrition, people not eating healthy enough. There were major flooding problems on top of everything. Everything was deforested. People were cutting down too many trees. Trees help protect against floods. So what Franklin Roosevelt wanted to do is he created this TVA, this Tennessee Valley Authority. And they thought they would actually fix a few problems at once. They would pay people to go around plant trees. If They have a problem where there's not enough trees to protect against flooding. We'll pay people to plant trees. They would also spend billions of dollars to build dams, like hydroelectric dams, power stations, recreation parks. They would try to do everything to try to stop this flooding. When they did this, they had to pay people to do all of it. And they were hiring people from states like Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. They're not bringing people in from Pennsylvania. But this is helping these people here. So what ends up happening is they're able to like build dams, get more electricity, get more trees, get more money that creates better schools, that creates basically a better life. So this Tennessee Valley Authority is probably Franklin Roosevelt's most successful New Deal program. I always like to spend a little bit of time here. This is a picture of a Tennessee town during the Great Depression. I would recommend study this picture. This is the type of town that I'm talking about during the Great Depression. I'm not going to go over this slide at all. We might end up seeing some questions here. Some people did criticize the New Deal. These are some common criticisms of it. Let's see here. A few other important programs to mention. We've got the Work Progress Administration, which was just another program which would dump money in to help people find jobs. The National Youth Administration, or the NYA, would help younger kids find part-time jobs, mostly so that they could stay in school. There were a lot of kids that were dropping out of school so that they could get a full-time job. Um, Purpose of this was help them get a part-time job, stay in school. They could help their family, but get an education at the same time. And then the last two here, we got Social Security. This would be a tax program that is going to create several things, but it is most notably a retirement account for older Americans to protect the oldest of us and make sure that they have a steady income when they get old. And then lastly, I'd like to point out this Rural Electrification Administration. This was a government program that would provide electricity to rural areas that really didn't have it at the time. Think of today, I always like to use the example of high speed internet in Turtle Point. If you ever go to Turtle Point, there's not a lot of high speed internet access out there. Companies don't want to like expand out there because nobody lives there. Now, if you're an electric company in 1934, why do you want to go to the backwoods of Alabama when there's not many people out there? This government administration would force companies to provide electricity to those rural areas. And these last couple of slides here, I'm not really going to get into. Again, you might end up seeing some test questions, but because the test at the end of the chapter is going to be open note, I'm not too worried about it. You can find that stuff. I feel I covered the important stuff here. I would recommend take a few minutes, maybe look at some of the videos that were thrown in here. There weren't many, but there's a few interesting ones, like this one on the Tennessee Valley Authority is kind of an interesting one. Now, this chapter is going to be very brief. You guys are going to take a chapter test on Friday. So, like, I'm not going to mess around with this chapter. I want to spend most of the remainder of the school year on World War II. My plan, I think, is Tuesday and Wednesday. I've got a couple of reading assignments. Thursday, I'll do a quizzes like I did with the last chapter. Give you guys a chance to earn some bonus points. And then Friday will be your chapter test. So have a good day, guys. Make sure you take the quiz that goes along with this video at the end. I think it's like 10 questions or something. All right, see you, bye.